This episode has been brought to you by Subject to Change Customs. Choose Subject to Change for all your custom apparel and promotional product needs. Follow them on all social media at S2C LLC and get your 4 times dope merch on their website. That's www.shops2c.com.
Yeah, we in the building. 4 times dope. Yeah, we known to get it live, man. 4 times dope. New level, keep it high, yeah. 4 times dope. Mic check, now we on it, we live.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another great episode of the 4 Times Dope podcast. And we are again going to have a great time and have a great discussion about some very, very important issues in the Black community and the Black race. All right, well, with no further ado, I am Jermaine Jones along with my co-host. Guys, you can introduce yourselves.
What up, everybody? This is Jamie.
What's good? It's Kisharo.
And not last, but or least, it's Kwame.
Right. So, I will say this episode is super special. I would like to first begin by saying that. Let me make sure first begin by saying that I think what makes it super special is the fact that we all need to be more aware of Juneteenth. I think within the last maybe 4 to 5 years, it's become more popular. A lot of folks didn't know exactly what it meant, but we're here to shed some light on that. And we actually have a very special guest to help us out with that. And her coursework and her line of work has certainly been a contributing factor to Black history and Black culture. Our guest is Miss Phyllis Coley. She's the CEO and publisher of Spectacular Magazine and host of the Spectacular Magazine radio show. And I just want to point out, I won't go into detail because we'll be probably here for a long time pointing out everything that she's done. But she is a Durham native, and she began a professional career in promotions and marketing. And then she went on to radio, where she actually discovered the rap group Kid and Play, or the
That's
rap
right.
Kid, which is awesome. And I actually used to work with Play over at Healthy Start Academy, and I got a chance to kind of spend some time talking to him. So, without further ado, I want to introduce Miss Phyllis Coley. She is such an awesome woman, and she's she's also an English major from NCCU. So that's my bond, my low key bond with her.
Yeah, equal pride.
Right.
All day.
Miss Coley,
Communications building.
right, all day long, 3rd floor, baby, all day long. Miss Coley, how are you doing?
Wonderful. Thank you. Hello to all of you. And thank you so much for having me today.
So happy to have you here with
Thank
us.
you for having.
here.
I didn't
the
know,
time
and
to come on.
I needed some protection. So
Uh-huh.
I brought my dog Jill. So I'm just
Okay.
okay.
Hey,
She got you. Jill got your back.
All right.
That's right.
We got our 6th
Right.
co-host today, Jill.
That's right.
Right. So, okay, before we get into it, I have a quick question, and this is for everyone. And Miss C, you can actually answer the question first, but we like to ask questions, Miss C, before we to preface the show to kind of get everybody thinking on one accord. So, but my question to you all is, and I'll go last. Since we all are stewards and students of North Carolina Central University, I would like to know, if possible, which season reminds you all of a particular event or any aspect of NCCU, winter, spring, or fall. Is there any season that when we're in that season, you automatically think about something that happened to you at NCCU?
Yeah.
Fall semester, the
Yeah.
fall season,
Talk about it.
homecoming. And even I think, and as a student, it was going back to school.
Mhm.
And and all of that and getting back in it. I was in the band, so actually I went back early, and
Yeah.
so the fall for me is always a
Okay.
good time. And then I love fall colors.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. All right, Miss C. Kashara, what would you say, bro?
I would actually say the same thing, but I guess it's more for me. It's more toward like the it's fall, but we come right back to school like in August, September,
Yeah.
Right.
around that time. 'Cause I
Right.
just feel like the energy is just like always just on 10, and it's just always like some type of hot music or hot song out around that time. So like
Mhm.
anytime August, September comes and there's something hot on the radio or XM or
Right.
whatever it is, I automatically I go back to North Carolina Central.
Yeah.
Always.
Right. Right. Jamie, what would you say?
I'm gonna have to fall in line with Miss C and tell y'all it's all about that fall. Because it's that crisp air. When you breathe in that crisp air, it's like it's football season.
Right.
Time to win. It's something to look forward to. It's Saturday mornings. It's Friday nights. It's that crisp Durham air
Right.
in about October,
Right.
which puts you at homecoming. Here we go.
Right.
That's right.
Here we
Go.
go.
It's go. It's go time. It's
It's
go
go
time
time
around.
this
There
year.
you.
Oh
There
my
it is.
God.
Right.
Yeah.
Kwame, what would you say, dude?
Yeah, we betting it 100% because I'm going in fall too as
Fall.
well. And it's if you want to, it might be technically late summer because fall was spring, but like it's September. But yeah, we all saying that fall semester, and I think about just the returning back to school. Can't wait to see my friends I ain't see all summer.
Right.
The opportunity just to kind of like get back in that rhythm of of the academics and all the social events that you can do. So that's what I
Right.
remind me of Central.
Right. And you know what? We're all, and I'm a echo what you just said, or everybody just said. We're batting 100%. For me too, I thought about this earlier, and it is the fall because for me, in addition to what everyone else said, for me, it was a time for me to get back into that space with my friends who were scholastic, thinkers, and for some reason in the fall, I was always in August. I was thinking about homecoming already. So.
Yeah.
I was always thinking about homecoming, and I felt like the fall was symbolic to me, making another historical step at NCCU, right? Getting closer to graduation and just being cultivated more by that whole culture, HBCU experience and everything. So the fall was more so like it prefaced the outcome, it prefaced the graduations, it prefaced all that stuff, man. It was just so important. You know what I'm saying? So I think we all see out the same people on that. So, and speaking of, what we've, in terms of experiences from NCCU, but here's what I want to lead with in terms of this whole entire Juneteenth discussion. And this is something important because I didn't realize this until I started grad school, right? How important this was. But my question is, what is something that you all learned at NCCU in regard to Black history that you were not aware of prior to becoming a student at North Carolina Central? And Miss C, if you want to kick it off and share that with us.
I saw, and to be honest, I knew we were going to have this conversation, and it's been a minute since I was at North Carolina Central in classes. But I think that what I learned most was the importance of an HBCU, the importance of being at an HBCU. I don't know that I knew the term HBCU then. We just knew it was a Black college. And at the Black college, they were going to make sure you got through and that you graduated, and they took care of you, and they made sure you ate even if you didn't have any money on your card and all of those kinds of things. So I think that is what I left with, is that the importance of being at a Black college.
Yeah.
And wow, that is so powerful. Oh man, that's so powerful you saying that. I think all of us, all of us definitely can relate to that. Kwame, what about you?
There's so much to think about, but I think what kind of comes to mind is like I'm a huge history buff, and I remember like one of my classes that I went to, it wasn't an African American class, but it was actually like African history class. And I remember one of the professors there, she was this kind of like this teaching us about listening to how people describe certain things and how how they refer to, I guess, Black people in general, and normally it's in a negative like connotations, and being more aware of those things. So so for example, they may say somebody's like tribal, or they use certain keywords to try to
Yeah,
Right.
urban.
Right.
lesser than.
Right.
She brought awareness to those things, and we talked about it a whole lot. And yes, I might have known that before, but it was just like it was more in depth, in
Right.
classes. And the funny thing about it, I like the class, but I didn't get like a D in the class, which was crazy. Like I like going, I enjoyed the class, I was paying attention to everything else, but I swear, everything we talked about, it'd be nothing on that test that would be up there. And I'm like, yo, how I like going to class and not passing or barely passing. I don't consider D pass. I guess it's passing, but
no, you failed lightly.
You clearly failed that class, bro.
Yeah.
He is failing. Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was nuts. But yes, it was just that's what sticks out to me.
But Kwame, you know what's interesting? The fact that you said that is actually something that I learned years later in regard to the media and how media typecast Black males, right? Well, Black folks, period.
People in general,
when it comes to the same equivalent crimes as Black folks and white folks. And for example, one thing that sticks out, there's this image when Hurricane Katrina hit. There's an image of two white people walking through waist high waters. You guys seen that image, and it's an image of a Black guy. And the rhetoric is the Black guy was looting food coming through the water, while the white folks were finding food, right?
I found some food.
Right. You ask yourself, how did that get by editors, right? But anyway, my point is that's definitely something that's what they use to weaponize, I guess, certain cultures. Kashara, what would you say, dude?
For me, it's not one particular thing as far as Black history that I learned at NCCU. I think one of the things I walked away with was I've never had an issue with being Black, and I've always been proud to be Black. But once coming to Central, I had a newfound pride. You know what I mean? Like it kind of kicked in more, and I understood what Black pride meant. And actually, two professors kind of like helped bring that kind of home for me, and that was Dr. Kennedy and Kwame. I know she was one of your favorite professors. But
is that Dr. Ruth Kennedy?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
I love her.
Dr. Kennedy and Miss Minnie Fort, those two professors, like kind of really brought it home for me as what it is to be HBCU, Black pride, and everything. And one of the things I never forget the conversation after my speech class with Miss Fort. She asked me a question regarding my history. What did I learn? What did I learn in from grade school before I came to NCCU? From elementary, high school, middle school, and I was like, I don't really know. I said, but I told her, I was like, after talking to you and talking to some other professors, what I did learn is they were teaching us that we did not exist.
Essentially,
because we
preach, boy.
All we heard was Martin Luther King, Malcolm X. I'm like, that's all we heard all the time. You might got some drops here and there about Rosa Parks or this person, but they were basically teaching us that we did not exist, as Black people.
If you would have think that, you would think that Martin Luther King freed the slaves. The kids really think that.
And Rosa Parks, you're right, Jamie.
And Rosa Parks, you're right. And Rosa Parks.
Right.
So that was definitely, something I took away, coming to NCCU.
Hey, speaking of Dr. Kennedy too, you brought her up. Like one of the things I also learned from her was, well, not learned, but also they stuck with me to this day. It affected me not in a positive way, I guess, but like I remember my freshman year, and people going to class and people wearing like their Duke t-shirts and their UNC t-shirts and their all these other white schools, and she was just like, yo, like, well, you go to North Carolina Central, you need to show pride in your school, and so you won't find these people over there at Duke or UNC wearing North Carolina Central shirt. And to this day, I wouldn't wear another university's paraphernalia, not pro teams and stuff like that. I would do that, but like as far as university, if it ain't Central, I'm not wearing it. My wife trying to get me to like wear some Southern stuff, Southern University, so I may do that through marriage, but but outside that,
you married into that. You were
outside of that.
I'm still the same. I'm the same way now. The difference in me is that I will wear the paraphernalia from my son's college because I feel like my money went there.
That's right. That's right.
So I will wear that. He went to High Point University, so I will wear some of their things. But otherwise, it's no college or university.
Right. Jamie, what about you, man?
I learned not from a professor. I have a deeper love affair with the city of Durham. My uncle went to North Carolina Central. My uncle Gaston Patterson, which is why I came.
Gaston, goodness.
I'm his nephew, and my uncle Gaston went to Nccu. That's our family school. So when we get the chance, I'm from Red Springs, it's a little country town. So when we got a chance to come to Durham, it just felt right. So when I got to Nccu, I mean, because he took me on the college tour by just he and I came up to take what was that test we had to take?
ACT.
So that weekend, he took me around campus and said, okay, this is it. And that's that. But through those years, I learned about Durham. And what I mean is just on Fayetteville Street, there's a world-class elementary school, world-class middle school, James Shepherd, IB. Then there's a world-class high school, Hillside High School. Kids at Harvard, Yale, you name it.
Right.
And then a world-class university. And that's right on one street. So a child has the ability to go to these major institutions and, in one city on one street. And it's all in the black part of town. Or blacker part of town, or one of the black parts of town.
No, you're right. But I'm
in North Raleigh now.
But understand that Durham is unique because Durham has a disproportionate amount of people in the black folk income level.
Yeah, we're rich.
Rich, and that plays a lot into it. For years, Durham had 2 black banks, and most cities don't have one.
Right.
And so that says a lot about our city.
It does.
And your adopted city.
Right. Exactly. And you know what, guys? For me, what I learned, I learned a lot, but there are 2 things that stick out. Well, this is packaged, right? This is one package, and part of the package was I learned that NCCU was an extension of my mama. They fed me, they made sure I was safe, and they worried about my well-being. And in that space, in that HBCU space, I was groomed and I was cultivated. And I had even my white professors in the English department. They had a vested interest in the outcome. And I remember that the English department, they told us, hey, if you can't write well, you will not graduate with an English degree from North Carolina Central University. That's why we have this comprehensive exam, right? So that's one thing. But the other thing I learned was to detach away from what Kasharo said. We were groomed to believe that we didn't exist and that Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King spearheaded everything. And that's not true. I learned that Sarah Louise Keys, the same thing that happened to Rosa Parks, happened to Sarah Louise Keys 6 or 7 years prior to Rosa Parks. I learned that Denmark Vesey was not having it on that plantation. And he was like, you know what? It's going to either be my life or their life. Him and Claude McKay. So I started, and then they had a snitch in the camp, and it kind of, but he still went full blast. But my point is, I learned about these slaves who was like, you know what? Enough is enough, and I'm not having it. And I think for me, even now as a black professor teaching at a white institution, that the same attitude that Denmark Vesey has, I have to have that in that white space. It has nothing to do with my accolades or my coursework, but I have to be germane and have that carry that HBCU mentality into those white spaces in order for me to survive in those spaces, right? So that's just something that I learned, and it's dear to me, and I'm always gonna stand on that and be true to that those teachings. So
that's what's up.
Good. Okay, but something you just said, or a little phrase you just said, just kind of brought me to where we about to go now. You said enough is enough, and I feel like, when will it ever be enough? Like, I feel like we still crying out for social justice, after all these years, generation after generation. And more notably, I thought about that more on the anniversary of George Floyd's death. for me, I know on that day, you know, I had a lot going on. When I realized it was the anniversary, you know, of his death and what happened to him, one of the things that came to mind for me was just like, it's been a year since that happened, and then it's another year that I survived being on this earth as a black man.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that just kept sitting with me. You know,
Right.
like
Right.
on that day, and I know it was a lot of, you know, rallies and things going on and vigils and a lot, but I just wanted to know from, you know, each of you, w- what did you reflect on, you know, on the anniversary of his death? Like, what did you think about? What did you do? What were you doing? You know, when it happened a year ago? Like, do you remember any of that? Like, what was going on at that time, and how did you feel a year later, Kwame?
Um, well, at the time, of course, you know, it was heartbreaking. It was very difficult to watch. It was, you know, it was very real. Cause like, I mean, to see something to take place over 9 minutes, on camera, and it's still a debate in this person's, just a death is justified, or or the person being arrested. I'm sorry, being getting the justice he needs, whatever. It's just a lot to just kind of deal with that and cope with that. And then you got a whole year later, we still asking for some type of policy to put in place in regards of the police. Like, why is it taking so long just to have certain police? And I say all police is bad; there are good cops as well. But the cops that are actually doing this crime and some kind of basically some kind of way to make sure that this stuff don't happen again. You have something in place as far as like tracking these police officers so they can't leave to go to a different department, do the same thing. Uh, maybe some financial ways to kind of trying to penalize people for doing something that's like not right.
Yeah.
So it's
I say,
nothing.
I say, take their pension.
The
I
pensions.
agree. I totally agree.
Take that
If
pension.
these people start, see, even when they get sued, it's our tax dollars
Right,
that
right,
the city is using to
right.
pay them.
Exactly.
That's just not, and so that's not right. So they don't feel any type of hurt.
No.
There's no kind of pain. We haven't hurt them by putting them in jail. We haven't hurt them
Nope.
financially. They just go on about their life.
Nope.
Like nothing, like absolutely nothing has
Nothing
happened.
happened. Yep.
Nope.
And I totally agree. I think that there should be some type of registry that if
Right.
there's these people, if there's a lot, because look at all the things that's coming out about Chauvin in Minneapolis. That
Right.
if those things, there's no way that he should have even still been on the force.
Exactly.
Nope. Nope.
But then these things happen, and it's just crazy. I'm sorry.
Right.
No, you definitely,
You're fine.
you're
Yeah.
definitely right. You saying everything I
Jump
want
in.
to say.
Yeah.
You actually saying it, yeah, a lot better than the way I'm trying to say. I'm trying to get my thoughts together, but yeah. So it need to be something in place to make sure people are held accountable. And I don't feel like it's a year later, and people are still dying the same way, and there's no accountability still put in place. But they can find ways to put other acts and to move forth. I don't see why it's even hard. It's not saying that all cops should be penalized, but if you're doing something wrong, it's like a doctor do something and they have malpractice suit, it should be something against that person directly. So people will think about what they're doing before they easily pull this trigger or go too far or use excessive force.
Right.
So that's what I think about.
Okay. All right. Miss Coley, what about you?
Yeah. Okay. So, well, on that day, a few days before that, we had the opportunity to sit down and talk with Roger Floyd, who is George Floyd's uncle, on his father's side, obviously. And so George was born, of course, in Fayetteville, and the family is from Clinton. So I had an opportunity to talk with him, but a lot of our conversation was off the record.
Okay.
But I really want, so that's how I celebrated. For me, it was that honor of talking to his uncle and bringing it out. As far as how I felt, it made me go back to, I went to high school in Oxford, North Carolina, and there was a killing there where the white owners of a store said the guy had stolen something or whatever, put something in his pocket, got his shotgun, ran him down, shot him on the doorsteps of this lady that I knew, with some friends of mine. It was their grandmother's house. And they just shot him down. They didn't. So it was almost like, so now here they all come in the back of their trucks. Actually, there was a movie, Blood Done Sign My Name, written by Tim Tyson, Dr. Tim Tyson, who is a professor at Duke. His father was the pastor of the Presbyterian Church, and he tried to bring peace, and because it was a lot of burning, a lot of other stuff that happened after this. And when these men were never arrested, and then when we protested enough, and different things happened, Stokely Carmichael came in, and and all of these things. They did finally arrest the men, but it was a kangaroo court. And so nothing ever happened to them. So that was the thing that I think that it took me to there. For me to say, what has changed? I mean, we marched every week. We did everything. We did all the same things that people are doing now, and they did after the everything that happened with George Floyd and others. And we marched from Oxford to Raleigh. And we did all of those things. And yes, we do need to protest, but I don't see that a lot has changed. Now there has been some changes,
right?
But so much is still the same.
Yeah, no wholesale changes.
Right. And I think, and if we continue like we're going now in 2020 and 2021, we're regressing.
Yeah.
Right.
True. So true. Thank you for that, Ms. Coley. Jermaine, what about you?
Well, I'm gonna be honest, man. It took me back to what I felt, exactly what I felt on the day that George Floyd was killed. The anniversary just reminded me just how much, and how it reminded me of how magnified the hate for Black folks is by America, right? And what we saw was nothing new historically in America. It's something that's always been happening. The fact that it happened in 2020, I think it just blew the top off of historically what has been happening to Black, specifically, well, Black men and women, specifically Black men. So I'm saying all that to say, with understanding just like how much America hates Black men, I thought about how the media has demonized us, how we've been weaponized and all this good stuff throughout history. And it just made me fearful. You understand what I'm saying? Like, I really began to say, damn, like, what if I get stopped, or what if I'm walking into a store and someone just robbed it and I'm just the scapegoat that day? Anything is possible. Yeah. And you couple that with what happened on January 6th and how those folks have been treated, it's a clear indication of there's a two-tier justice system in America. So, and I started thinking about the just like even my older uncles and how what happened to George Floyd, how in their decades of living, how psychologically, how they were affected by that. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And just like all the emotional and psychological trauma that Black folks have endured, and we still continue to endure. And a lot of us don't seek help, and we have a lot of trauma. We absolutely don't have a clue why, but that's a big portion of it. So for me, it just reminded me that my police today is my great granddaddy's police. We got the same police. My great my man I never met, and me today, we have the same police. And it's somewhat frightening. Now, however, I will say this. I haven't also, I like Kwame, I contemplated on reform. And I think before we take any pension, before we do anything, I think these part of the police training should incorporate implicit biases. Because a lot of times when you examine what you've been taught and what you've learned about Black people in your home, and you examine that, I think that can kind of somewhat, I'm not saying it's the panacea, but it can kind of help. Because you can't police the people that you hate. You see what I'm saying?
Or don't know.
Or don't know. Or care to know.
Right. If you don't know anything about the culture, you don't know anything about them, you can't police these people and protect the people that you don't know and that you hate and that you've been in your introductory environment, in your home, you've been groomed to hate. So it starts, you understand what I'm saying? So it starts with that implicit biases training and then psychological. It's a whole bunch of stuff, but I think it starts there. But it just reminded me just of how fragile black male life is in America.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I totally, I agree. And, it really ties in with where you started out with the conversation about what we learned about our history. And because again, when you don't know your history, you're doomed to repeat it.
Every time.
Never taught us, and only because with the internet and with, people can research stuff, are we starting to even understand, first of all, our greatness.
Right.
But we're also, and because that has been pushed, and we're just now starting to understand our greatness, and that's what's so more important about educating. So when you talk about the police having to be re-educated, their education process was what we were taught, they were taught too.
Right.
But they were taught that they were superior. They were taught that Black people were happy being slaves because we were singing. And then they've taught them that, well, they had the best. They had a roof over their head. They had food to eat. So I don't know what they could be unhappy about. And that's what they were taught, and that's what they passed down for generations. We've been taught, and our parents and grandparents the best that they could, and how they tried to protect us. But we were taught to, yes, ma'am, and no, sir, and bow your head and don't speak back. And all of those kinds of things. So there's so much education, because not only do white people need to be re-educated, there's some Black people that
people do too.
And re-educated well too.
Definitely.
Without a doubt.
I mean, I run into it all the time. And having a publication that's geared to the Black community, and I've been doing this 16, 17 years, and there are people who I have had companies to say to me that they won't advertise with me because Black folk don't read.
What?
Wow. I'm not surprised, but I can't believe somebody's actually telling you that.
Y'all stand outside and they wear referee looking shirts, and y'all sit outside and sleep outside to give them your money for some sneakers.
Yeah.
They don't think you read.
Right. Correct.
So don't get me started, because so that's what I'm saying. So not only do we do that, we need to educate white people.
Yeah.
They're Black folk that need to be educated.
I
Certainly.
agree with that.
And Jamie, before you go, I just want to say real quick, since we're talking about education, I think, all of us, anybody Black in America, our people, it is our responsibility, whether you have kids or not, it is our responsibility to educate these kids who are coming up, behind us. Even then, like I still learn stuff, I've been taught things, but we learn all the time. But I think it's our responsibility to teach these young kids about our history. Because like I said, they teach. It has not gotten better since we were in school. Like I see what my kids come home and learn now.
Right.
It's a little bit more than what we got, but we can't depend on the schools. So
you can't do that.
We have to educate.
Obama, so they had to throw that in. They couldn't leave that out of the history books.
Right.
But
gotta give them that.
Not from Martin Luther King to Obama.
Right.
But, and then what we gotta realize too,
Dr. King.
What we gotta realize too, kindergarten, middle school, and high schools are not HBCUs, right? There's no residue of HBCUs in these schools. So I call it compelled instruction, where the United States government it mandates what will be taught. It starts in the same building where the Constitution was finalized. So you're right, Kashara. We have to do that as parents. We have to incorporate that into that curriculum that our kids, that kids bring home.
Yeah,
I totally agree with that.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, Jamie, what's your thoughts on it?
The thought was, you have to remember that America has an addiction to murder and the porn of it.
That's true.
Now, how did you find out that George Floyd was killed? It was through social media, but it was on every page I was swiping, and I'm like, what is this? Because remember, now we had just passed Ahmaud Arbery, Sandra Bland was a few years passed, and then there was the hot part of Breonna Taylor.
And both of them, don't forget both of them, John, who was killed in his own apartment by the white officer.
Police officer in Dallas. Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
You have all of this porn, essential murder porn that was coming through social media to us. So I was like, another one? That's how I felt. Another one, right?
Yeah.
But to them, they need it, in my opinion.
Right. Vampires.
These cops.
Right.
So immediately we start to talk. My wife and I and then friends, we just start to talk about it. And I spoke with a friend, and he said something. What I remembered was this other point was that Dr. Claude Anderson had written the book Powernomics. One of the steps is buying politicians. We got to start buying politicians. That's the answer to it. You got to start having people to speak up for you. You got to pay them. And the other part is this: simple insurance. You start insuring folk and you kill them, and they got to start paying out to those families. Get all them policies gonna change. Then people got to start paying money. You got to follow the money. Where's the money at? Start buying life insurance and see what happened. You killing these folk left and right. These cops gonna have to start. It'll start coming out of them. So we put insurance policies on ourselves. We do need them, first of all. And then you put policies on these cops. You know, start hitting them in their pockets.
Right.
That's the answer. That's immediately what I started thinking about. And I didn't come up with this. My friend just said it in passing, like, just put insurance on these people, see what happened then.
Right.
You got to start paying out. $1 million policy. Oh, that's going to hurt. So we're going to start buying our politicians. That's the part we didn't do. We got to plot, strategize, and plan. We're not doing that part and then following through with it. It's a lot of lip service. Like right now, I'm giving lip service, but the point is, the proof is there. We just have to follow through on it. And it's our part to, you know, do that heavy lifting, which is one, getting the message through, which we got to start by. You got to speak the language. It's money.
Right.
Yeah, I agree, man. So it's a lot to think about. It's, you know what I'm saying, it's a little disappointing. And like I said, we when it's ever going to end. I mean, it's just just don't know. But one of the things, like I said, I want to get into is about Juneteenth. And I think Jermaine said at the beginning, is now probably getting more popularized. Even though it's been celebrated for years, but as far as like in the masses, it seems like you hear about it more and more the last few years, at least on like social media and the news and stuff like that. It's been more recognizable now. But what I wanted to start with is, and Ms. Coley, I think I might want to start with you last, since you might be more the expert on this, to tie it all together. But I just want to hear, you know, my brothers got to say about this and their thoughts about this. Sure, I'm gonna go ahead and just leave with your American appreciation for Juneteenth. Like, what's your thoughts about
my
that?
thoughts? Honestly, I think my black card should probably be revoked, because I seriously, like, and I feel bad about this, but like I said, I'm still learning too. Like, I really did not know what Juneteenth was until maybe like 2, maybe 3 years ago, you know, because I think I heard it in passing, but I thought when I first heard it, I thought it was like a joke, like, you know, among the black community, when somebody, we ain't celebrating no July 4th, we got our own thing, we got Juneteenth. And I was like, oh, okay. So I'm saying that like, oh, that's the thing, Juneteenth, not knowing this was something real.
Yeah.
And it really, like I said, last 2 years, I really started learning and having appreciation for it, and definitely last year, like I said, with everything was going on at the height of everything, like it really came full circle for me. And I was reading, and I was just diving into everything black I could, and I knew when Juneteenth was approaching, I was like, oh, I'm gonna be ready.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and I celebrated it. Like, we really did. Like, we took the kids to the Black Lives Matter walk in DC. I had, you know, these shirts made for us. Like, we don't celebrate July 4th, we celebrate Juneteenth. And it was like, I really had to put my dad hat on, my man hat on, my black hat on that day, because I really want the kids to understand like what this is. You know what I mean? Right. So now they get it. Like, they already talking about it now. What are we doing for Juneteenth this year? So it's like, I kind of feel like I brought it home, but I felt good within myself too, because I was like, I cannot believe that I did not know what this was, and I really felt bad. Like, I did not know what it was. And I was like, what? How did I not know? That's what
we forever learning though. We forever learning. We can't beat stuff not knowing.
Yeah, but I just felt so bad. I'm like, that is something I should have known. You know what I mean? But I'm okay with it now. But like, those are kind of my thoughts. You know, on Juneteenth.
Jamie, about you, man?
I'm right there with you, Kashara, because I just didn't know. Right? I read it and I was confused about it. Like, excuse me. But then what took it home for me was an episode of Blackish, and they had the cartoon with the roots on there, explaining it. I'm like, are you serious?
Right.
This is a real thing. So, I mean, you got to admit that, the media does curtail or give you what you need to know. They gave you Christmas. They gave you July 4th. They gave you Thanksgiving. None of that has anything to do with us. Right. But we took Kwanzaa, and we're now taking Juneteenth. The situation that needs to be explained is you got to stop. We have to stop asking for permission.
Yes.
Just, Juneteenth, here it is. We're gonna celebrate it. What you gonna do? I don't care.
That's right.
What we're gonna do is this. Don't matter what you want to do or what what your plans are. I don't have to. I'm taking a day off, Juneteenth.
Right.
So I was embarrassed for a hot second, but I was like, wait a minute now. It's only because we're not given this information. This should be in history books.
Right.
It should, yeah.
Right. So when were you gonna learn it?
Right.
That's an honest question. When were you gonna learn it? Until you did some reading, until the right message hit you.
Right.
And I was gonna say too, Jermaine, you might know this, being from the academic world and all, like I know, because my wife is in school and they're learning from the kids too. Like each state have their thing called standards of learning.
Right.
And I guess they just teach things based on that state, which I didn't know that either, till, having my own kids. But is there something like, could that be a standard of learning in every state? Like, why can't that be something that's in the books?
Well, may I say, because I am the North Carolina State Juneteenth State Director under the National Juneteenth Observance Foundation.
Okay.
And so one of our mission is to get Juneteenth as a day of observance. Now, right now, there is a moratorium on having any more holidays because a holiday means a day off. But our fight has always been, we need to be at least equal with Earth Day, Arbor Day, and all those other days.
4th of July.
There is a movement. Now, just so that you know, in 2009, North Carolina passed the Juneteenth bill.
Oh, really?
But the language in the bill is House Bill 1607. And they passed that bill, but the language says that North Carolina will recognize Juneteenth as a day of observance when it is recognized nationally.
Got it.
So I've been in a fight to say, could y'all just take those words off? But now that I understand the process, we have to also go to, so the bill has to be introduced. Now, I've walked it through every year. I've gotten people on both sides of the aisle to sponsor the bill, but it never makes it out of committee. And I'm not, so I don't have that time to be over in Raleigh every day following my making sure that
make sure it goes through committee.
Right.
So I am glad to see that municipalities, Durham City, the Durham County, Orange County, Chapel Hill, and Carrboro, and Raleigh are all observing this as a holiday, as a paid day off for all of their employees. So we are moving marching slowly in the right direction, but we are looking to make it where it's a day of observance. Now, when it becomes a day of observance, it's on every calendar that's printed.
Right.
And once that happens, now you see it on the calendar.
Right.
I mean, we're just talking about it now. But it's not on the calendars that are printed. When you open your phone and open your calendar, it has every holiday on there, whether you put it in there or not.
Yeah,
it does. Is what we're
it sure
fighting.
Does.
So right now, when I started, 41 states, and it may be up, it's probably more than that now, have passed some type of legislation to recognize Juneteenth. But again, they put that little caveat in there that says when it's recognized nationally.
So, Ms. Coley, let me ask you then, with that being said, what is it that we can do, us for Four Times Dope podcast and our listeners and just people, what is it we can do to help make this happen? Is there anything we could be doing to help push this?
I think that we're on that road and we're doing this. So it's really about education. The same thing that you guys have been talking about. Yeah. It's about education. Understand that when I started doing Juneteenth, which was 17 years ago, when I started doing it, I had people coming up to me saying, "Are you saying June the 10th? Are you saying June this?" You know, so it got to the point that my mother kept saying, "You need to have printed out information so you can put it in people's hands." So the first 5 years or so of doing Juneteenth, I had a printed information because see, there's so much history. May I tell you a little bit of why Durham is important in this Juneteenth?
Certainly.
Go ahead.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we all know that, you know, the Emancipation Proclamation signed on September 1st of 1863. I mean, to go into, it was signed in 1862 to go in effect January 1 on 1863. So 1862 to that January. So when people talk about their watch care services, see, the first watch care service was the formerly enslaved people in the church praying because they knew when midnight came, they were going to be. That's where the watch night services come that are in our churches today. Okay. I mean, there's so much, but as far as how Durham is related, there was a surrender, the largest surrender of the Civil War happened here at Durham at Bennett's Place. And that happened on April 25th of 1865. And so once that surrender happened here, there were reports saying that there was almost 200,000 soldiers, Union and Confederate soldiers here in Durham when that surrender happened. They had a party after. And at that, you know, a celebration, at that party, the Dukes, who owned the Duke family, gave out bright leaf tobacco, which was, you know, and so the soldiers were like, "Oh, this is smooth. Oh, I like this." So when they went back to their respective homes, they started sending in orders to get that tobacco. Washington and those guys, it could not keep up with the orders. Thus, they founded American Tobacco. And then through that, then under that, but keep in mind, they also had the Duke Homestead. They were still running a plantation now. You know, they still had their plantation. They were doing other things. So that money, almost 2.5 years that they got continued to get free labor until that surrender happened. And the interesting thing about this that I find every year, they still have a reenactment every year here in Durham on April 25th. And so that's one of the reasons. And so much of the economy of Durham was based on what happened after that surrender.
Gotcha. Okay.
Wow.
All right. I like that.
That's a lesson for you, right?
Definitely a good lesson. I like that.
Yes, man.
What's your thoughts about about Juneteenth and what you appreciate?
So I have kind of like mixed feelings, but primarily, I think for me, I'm thankful to be an academic because a lot of this stuff I learned in my extended studies. And when I came across this information, it was like, damn, who do I share it with? Because nobody's familiar with, you know, people start looking at you like, what are you talking about? Because we've all been so conditioned and groomed to believe July 4th was this and Christmas was this. And it's hard to unlearn certain things when you've been like fed this stuff from 5 years old all the way to your senior in high school. It's kind of hard to, you know, to unlearn it. But my thoughts are, I'm happy now that it's more popular and people are actually doing research on it and understand what it means. Because a lot of times as Black folks, we throw in the towel when it comes to celebrating our history and our culture. And what I mean by that is it's easier just to continuously celebrate July 4th because it's family tradition. Because I don't want to tell my mom and my grandma and my older aunts and uncles, June, this is not for us. I would just rather play along and go along with it. And you continuously buy into that false narrative, right? Um, and that's the other part of Juneteenth for me. It just highlights that white America has written or tried to write our narrative, our black narrative, the same thing that Hollywood does, right? A lot of these movies about black folks in Hollywood aren't written by black writers; they're written by white folks, Miles Davis and all these other movies.
It's always a white savior in these movies too.
Right. So to me, the power of Juneteenth. I mean, I'm excited about the power of it now. And here's the thing too, fellas. I want to say this. I missed this point earlier. In terms of Juneteenth and the power of it, it's the snowball effect has been created now. But it's so sad that in order for the progression needle to move in black culture, there has to be death. So blood has to be spilled in order for us to get white America's attention. That's the only thing that makes me so sad, and it's going to continue. To me, it's going to be continuously be that way. So George Floyd's death, since it was just in your face, it was so blatant. White America couldn't hide behind the media or couldn't hide behind police. What do you call it? The immunity.
Qualified immunity.
Qualified immunity. It was right there. So they had to. So America had to admit, damn, this happened, and that just it caused a somewhat of a trickle down effect. Now, again, when I think of Juneteenth, I think I'm happy, but I'm also sad because again, Black death has to happen in order for our historical pains be recognized.
Brought to the forefront.
Brought to the forefront. You understand what I'm saying? Someone has to be sacrificed.
Question, because I don't understand what you're saying. Because I've been putting Juneteenth out here, doing this for 17 years or so, and it wasn't based on a death. So maybe I'm not following what you're saying.
Oh, yes, ma'am, Miss C. Oh, no, what I'm not necessarily Juneteenth. I think what I'm excited about is, folks, in terms of Juneteenth, what I was saying was, well, on paper, slavery ended in 1862, right?
63, I believe.
63. Okay, yeah, 63. But you had those slave owners who they were acting like they didn't get the memo for like 2 years, and slavery continued. Mm-hmm. All right, but what I'm saying is, I'm excited about now Juneteenth catching fire in the Black community, right? And people are starting to understand that the difference between Juneteenth and July 4th, right? Mm-hmm. But what I'm sad about is whenever we have progress, Black Juneteenth is progress, but it seems like it took someone in the Black community to die for the masses of Black folks to gravitate to Juneteenth.
You mean like last year you said?
Yeah, I get you, because I consider myself one of those people you're talking about. Like I said, it was 2 years when I actually started understanding it and what it meant, but it wasn't until George Floyd's death and all the stuff that was going on last year is when it really came to me.
Resonated with
that. You. Yeah, exactly. But it took. I don't know how long it would have took before I really got it and it resonated with me, but I know it took that situation to kind of bring everything to the forefront for me. You know what I mean? Because I was like, as a Black man, I'm thinking about my life and like, that is another Black man life they just took here. So it was a lot of heavy thinking. And so, is that what you're saying? Like, because of his situation?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying.
It made it more like an appreciation.
Impactful.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. And the other thing is, I think all Black men, I don't care on all spectrums, because we are on the same team. What do I mean by that? We all got on the same uniform. We're on the same team. Every day. And I think Black men. I think Juneteenth now resonates more so obviously with more Black men. But Miss C, to my point, I was just saying that. Let me make this point too, because Shiro, we can't be in no one. We can't hold ourselves accountable, because you got to understand, this wasn't taught in schools purposely. We didn't get this in kindergarten. We didn't get it in middle school. We didn't get it in high school.
The plan worked.
Right. And it's premeditated, right?
Yeah.
And that's why HBCUs are so important. And that's why HBCUs are hated on too by these PWIs. But my point is this, Miss C, I want to go back to what I'm saying. When I talked about Black death, I was just saying that it seems like it always takes a Black death in order for Black folks to become more conscientious about Black culture and Black life and Black space, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And George Floyd's death, to me, was another death that made more Black folks say, you know what, enough is enough. Yeah, let me begin to gravitate to Juneteenth and learn more about myself and my culture.
Right.
Yeah, but there was just like you talked about the media and what the media portrays out there. There was much more talk about it in 2020 than ever.
Right.
And
Ever, yeah.
even the former man the former child who was in the White House, he even it came out of his mouth and
said it.
You know, and so yes, it did make. I think it made it all of those things coupled together, and the pandemic, and the fact that we were on lockdown, so we had no, not just us, but people around the world had no choice but to sit and watch TV. And, and it was on every 30 minutes.
Right.
It became a lot. I actually said, you know, this has helped me probably more than anything to try to educate people. This year, for the first time, when I called on sponsors, see, people would not even talk to me. Different corporate folk wouldn't even talk to me because they weren't comfortable even with the word slavery.
Right. No one wants
this year. I found people have been. It's been more accepting. So I think that in your Jermaine, and what you were saying, I think if you go back through history, you'll find that every big movement happened because of a tragedy.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, and when I talk to George Floyd's family, that's the one thing that they feel, that George was sent here for that mission to open up our thoughts and open up. You know what I'm saying? So just like every case, you look back, when you look at the Emmett Till, that's why Emmett Till's mother wanted his casket open.
Yeah.
That people could see. You know, so we're not sweeping this under the rug.
Right. Yeah. And Miss C, you know what, Miss C, I totally agree. And the reason why I made that comment is because you just mentioned it, Emmett Till, but also after Mike Brown was killed, I actually sat down with both his parents. I had a chance to interview both his parents. And I'm actually gonna put that dialogue in the book that I'm finishing up now. And Mike Brown's dad said something very similar to what George Floyd's uncle family said. And in that, Mike Brown, regardless of the negative stereotypes and typecasting that the media did against Mike had just graduated from high school, and his dad told me he felt like Michael Brown was sent to direct change in the Black community when it comes to policing and killing of unarmed Black folks and just Black life, period. That's definitely one of the things he said when I spoke to him.
Yeah. And so I think that we don't want it to happen. And Lord knows we want it to be us, and we don't want it to be our family.
Right.
But if we look
it
back,
keeps landing at our feet.
That's how it's been. Go
And
back
look at it.
Well, I think what I want to say to appreciate Juneteenth is that I think that we have to recognize that this is a movement to make sure our history is not told.
Yeah.
And you have to be very aware of that's going on. You hear some of these right-wing Congress people trying to pass laws, the Patriot Act, they're trying to stop Black history is being taught. I mean, we've seen what recently happened to Nicole Hannah-Jones. Trying to get fellowship at UNC.
And Dr. Cornel West. Harvard didn't give him
no. Oh, see, so I didn't know about that. But like I say, so it's going across the board. You got somebody who's a MacArthur Fellowship, who's a Pulitzer Prize winner, who wrote the 1619 Project. These people.
1619 Project is that's what they have the problem with.
Oh, yeah, that's the big problem.
They have a huge problem with it, and
which is our history in America.
That's what I'm saying, and they don't want that to get out.
They don't want to be told.
Now they have. I can't remember the term, but they're talking about that they can't teach certain things in school now because we were teaching the white kids to hate white people.
White people, exactly. You took what I'm about to say, Miss Coley, exactly what I was going at, and that's determination that they're trying to say. So you got these people, this board, because they giving money to UNC, making decisions for this woman, but not to get her fellowship there,
her tenure.
Her tenure. I'm sorry, and none of those people that was on that board were like history majors or anything, but they
had money.
they big time donors.
They money majors.
They money majors. Yeah, exactly. And they didn't want
make
to
the decisions.
let this person come apart and get tenure there. The person who went to grad school there and everything. So it just this is what's happening. So you got this going on, and you go back to the history even prior to prior to Juneteenth, you're talking, and all we hear about the like fathers and stuff and what they do. And like I said, and we talked about this earlier in a different episode.
Yeah.
How I just can't relate to this forefather thing. We have somebody, Thomas Jefferson, who actually wrote a book talking about, the disliking of race of race mixing. Why he also have a mistress and had 6 kids with her. I'm sorry, who
was black, by the way.
Yeah, who brodified, who justified slavery, justified white supremacy. In that book, he talks about how black people dark skin, you can't see their emotion, and how black people are less attractiveness than white people, and how black people prefer white people. This is a person that we are taught to glorify this person, forefather. How as a black man I can relate to that, somebody who put this in a book that he's written. And a big time hypocrite as well. You know what I'm saying?
Every year I publish Frederick Douglass's what is the 4th of July to the Negro.
Yeah.
And if you have not read it, please read them. Okay. Because even in 18 whatever year, and I'm sorry that I don't have that right in front of me, but he was still trying to make us understand that this day doesn't, because what he was talking is like, you guys invited me to come and speak, but I can't go over here to the celebration.
Exactly.
Right.
And that was the point that he was. So I'm good to come speak, but I'm not good enough to go over here and socialize.
Can't come to the party.
Miss C, to that point, Miss C, here's an example of what if you follow the breadcrumbs. This is something America did. I remember when Jesse Owens went over there and we kicked Germany's butt. Jesse Owens won like 10 gold medals, and he came back, and there was this big celebration at a hotel for him, and he had to enter through the back of the hotel. He couldn't even go to the celebration
for him,
right? And that's indicative of, when you go back to Thomas Jefferson, all those folks who helped pen the Constitution, and even now I tell my students, I say, the words don't pop out, say, hey, here I am. But the Constitution is an extension of white supremacy, and it's part of the reason, and it's one of the only prestigious documents that's been penned, it's never been modified. But it's part of the racist issue we have, because the intentions of the men who wrote it, the intentions of those men were for white families and white culture to prosper in America and no one else. If that makes sense.
Yes, so, and for us to always be in servitude.
Yeah.
Right. Right. So when you think of their intentions when they wrote it, and just period, like Kwame just said with Jefferson, some of the other things he said in some of those books. But anyway, my point is that's what Juneteenth and the last year just reminded me of, just how much and how powerful white supremacy is in its own world.
Yeah, systematic. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So but let me finish my point. So the point I just wanted to just finish is the fact that how that part is how it's not being taught, how they don't want us to be taught, whatever and stuff. And it's like I said, it's very, very important, because like I said, you don't hear some of the things that out of a horrible time, and some of the ways that we still make history that's just lost. Like I don't know, hey, do y'all listen to or seen the documentary with High on the Hog on Netflix?
Yeah, I watched that.
Yeah, I did. Well, there was a part where they were talking about Thomas Jefferson again, and about how Sally Hemings, which is the mistress of Thomas Jefferson, older brother was one of the chefs for Thomas Jefferson, and how he was basically trained in France to be, a chef, and he had to basically teach his younger brother to be a chef in order to get his freedom. And his younger brother was named Peter Hemings. He was the person that they believed that popularized macaroni and cheese, something that we recognize and we eat all the time. And it made me think about imagining all the stuff that maybe our own ancestors, our own great grandparents might have invented, had came up with, which was lost or was stolen from other people that was passed down. Like we might have somebody like James, you might have somebody that came with the plow or something. You know, it could be anything, and you will never know it because in the day that history was never taught down. History was stolen, and it was stolen from us. So I said all to say that it's important to learn those things, because also you have to learn about what came before. Like I said, we had Juneteenth, but before Juneteenth, they had the DC Emancipation. And like I said, we live, you know, Kashar and Jermaine, we live in this DC area, and if you're a DC employee, we recognize DC Emancipation, which is April 16th, and that happened in 1862. So that was prior to the actual emancipation that happened in January 1st, 1863. Then you go down to we say Juneteenth, was it June 19th, 1865? And I believe from what I was hearing that's when the soldiers, Union soldiers, came down to Galveston, Texas, 2 years, almost 2.5 years later, letting them know that they were basically free and emancipated. It was a whole different problem now, but because a lot of those immigrants, or I guess slave owners that came from Georgia and Alabama that migrated to Texas, they brought their property, which was slaves, and they was trying to hold on to this even after it was, you know, nationally recognized as, you know, being, you know, people were being free, or Black people being free as well. And it's a line, and I think, like I said, it's one of the things that we just have to be familiar with and be proud of. But Ms. Cole, I'm gonna let you just kind of round this out, because this is your expertise right here.
Oh no, I'm just enjoying, because it's interesting to see, you know, the various perspectives. Certainly. And, you know, in the different age groups, I think there is a lot, but sometimes you got to celebrate where you are.
Yeah,
you know,
that's a great point.
Every step. You know, and I say that in everything that you do, celebrate every step. I know you have an end goal, but it's just like we talked about college. You know, celebrate that you finished your, you know, the first year. And celebrate that I finished the second year and I got through it. You want to celebrate every step. Although we have a long way to go, I thank God that we're not where we used to be. Okay. And so so I have always wanted Juneteenth, when I first started doing Juneteenth, because when I realized that, because I thought of Juneteenth as a Texas thing. Okay, I had heard of it, but I thought of it as a Texas, because you know it's been a holiday in Texas for a long time. And so when I started listening, you know, doing that, but then I started doing my research. Wait a minute, this makes sense. This is North Carolina is tied into it. And then when you look at all between Appomattox and all those other different surrenders that happened, all through the South, we have reasons to celebrate. And so we celebrate where how far we've come. But for me, Juneteenth is about pride. And Juneteenth is about recognizing everything that we have accomplished. We recognize our greatness. And I think that if we could get our young people, and you guys all talk like, you know, your parents and stuff, if we can get our young people to understand how great their ancestors were, children understand we built this country.
Missy.
Get people to understand that they were trying to grow, and that's only because my late husband was from South Carolina. And when I go down there and they got the rice and everything, they tell the story about how when they first brought people here, they were trying to grow tobacco in South Carolina. But it was too marshy. So they showed them how to make, you know, no, this is what the crop you need to grow. This is rice. Land. And so they have rice. But we brought all these things here. So once our people and our children, and not just our children, my classmates, okay? Once everybody can try to get a better understanding. Thank God for the internet. It makes it a lot easier, but there's information, you can find information. There's so much wrong information on this as well. There is an opportunity. So our Juneteenth, the 16th annual North Carolina Juneteenth celebration, will take place on June 19th. We've always had Juneteenth on the third Saturday of June, which was the date closest to Juneteenth. And we like to celebrate And so this year, the third Saturday in June is June 19th. You can't tell me that wasn't planned years ago before God even put it on my heart to start.
Right. See,
love it.
And where people were looking for someplace to go, and then they're going to come out, and people have a different look at Blackness. You look at the Crown Act, where we're now talking about Black women's hair, and it's okay, and you can't be discriminated because of your hair. And you know, it's so many things that we celebrate. I feel that Black men, I mean, all of us were there, and I'll probably get crucified for this, but I think that Black men were disproportionately affected by slavery.
Right, definitely, Miss C.
And so I do a lot. You will see more men on my stage. When we do a fashion show, we have a fashion show, there's equal men and women, because I want Black men to be celebrated.
Right.
And the fact that it's the day before Father's Day, where so many of these men were sold off and away from their children and never got to be a father.
Yeah.
And the reasons of the things that we have today is because there was nobody to show them. The only thing they saw of a man was that a man beat you.
Right.
Yeah.
And so then that's what they came, and children, and their children don't hate them because they beat them, but that was all they knew. That's what they saw that men did.
Yeah.
You know, so you got it's so much. But at our Juneteenth, which will take place downtown Durham on East Main Street, if you need to use for GPS purposes, we say use 331 East Main Street, 27701. And so our event goes from 1 to 10. We start off with an opening ceremony where we have dancers and drummers, but we don't just have African dancers and drummers. I have liturgical dancers. I have hip hop dancers, because all of those are what hip hop dancing is, a deviation of.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, it is.
So all of that. And we have all forms of music because it was our music.
Right.
So that's, you know, and our event is free. And, you know, because we strive to have an event, no matter the color of your skin, no matter your age, no matter your race, no matter your economic status. So that day, we're all
Hey, Miss C.
all out here celebrating.
Miss C, you said something that I actually like. I try to stand on too. Is and I tell my family members, and I tell all my friends, we have to celebrate the history that we make within our own families, whether it be graduate, being the first person to buy a car in their family or go to school. We have to celebrate that history. And I think a lot of times, because the grind can get so rocky, sometimes we forget when we do make history, small or big. So I think that helps with our own coping and healing of certain traumas. When we can say, hey, you know what? I'm the first person that bought a house, or in my family, or whatever history we make.
Or to go to college or whatever.
We need to celebrate that history, and we need to relay that history to those who are close to us, so they can help us celebrate that too.
Hey, Ms. Coley, is there a cost associated with the celebration?
No,
she said it was free.
It's free. And it's free. Open to all.
Miss Coley, I'm gonna try to make it.
It's a day that we celebrate our history, unless everybody, all races are educated.
They have to agree. Yeah, I agree.
And so I make sure that everything that I say, I don't say, free and open to the public. I say free and open to all.
Right.
Open to all.
Like that.
Okay, Miss Coley, we want to do our dose of dopeness. And it is our guest, Ms. Phyllis Coley, CEO of Spectacular Magazine. What we'd like to know is more about, if you could give us more background on Spectacular Magazine.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Okay. Now, so with Spectacular Magazine, well, I started Spectacular. I had a magazine. I had another publication before this called This Magazine, because my company was another Coley event, and I've always done event planning. But I only do event planning. I don't do weddings. I do large community events, and that's what I've always done. In 2004, I started Spectacular Entertainment Guide, because I did a focus group and did a study that told me that in 2004, there were a lot of new people moving into this area because of Research Triangle Park. And the main thing that people wanted to know is, what is there to do? because you had all these people coming from all these large cities coming to research Triangle Park. So they wanted to know what was it to do. So I started doing Spectacular Entertainment Guide. I did that for 2 years. It just became difficult, and it wasn't like really my field. So in August of 2006, I changed to Spectacular Magazine as a tabloid newspaper, but with the focus of dealing with issues that affect people of color. So all through that time, this is what our focus has always been. And my program has always been free because they're corporations who have money. My mission was that that my community gets the information. I'm not concerned with if you didn't have 50 cents or $1 to buy the publication, because again, those corporations can buy advertising. So I've never charged, ever. And even when we went to Glossy, people would pick it up and go like, oh my God. The only issue though is that I had a long-term plan. In 2009, this is what I was going to do. I did not plan that the bottom was going to fall out of the economy. So we went into that. 2014, I was like, okay, this is going to struggle. We're going back to the tabloid, newspaper, same information. And then but we always had one of that flip magazine that you could do. So we've always had that on our website.
Right.
In 2016, we had made a decision at January of 2017 that we would go totally digital.
Oh,
right.
We actually moved that up a little bit because of who won the election in November of 2016. I could not publish a story about them.
Right.
Okay. I really couldn't. So I said, this is a good time to stop publishing. Let's take these 2 months to get ready for January.
Right.
There you go.
So in January, we went digital. And so this is what we've been doing, but we've always done the Juneteenth celebration, and we do the History Month parade and block party, which is on the first Saturday of February on Fayetteville Street. We start at White Rock and we end at North Carolina Central University.
Hey.
And I always tell people the reason that I chose that route, that wasn't just happenstance. That route, when Dr. Martin Luther King came to Durham to speak, he spoke at Rock and he spoke at Central.
Wow.
So my parade route takes you from where he spoke the first time to where he spoke the second time.
Right.
Wow.
Awesome.
I actually have a photo of him coming out of McDougal.
Oh,
Really?
After he had finished speaking.
Wow.
That's amazing.
The history
Right.
there.
That's, so that's what Juneteenth is about. But let me just say, so for Juneteenth, we have food trucks. We have vendors and exhibitors. We're going to have a vaccine clinic. We've always had blood drive because it's really low right now with blood. I have medical professionals who will be there, blood pressure, cholesterol, BMI, because our weight contributes to a whole lot of this stuff, right?
Right.
The disparities that we see. And we have HIV testing.
Wow.
And we have consultation, and all of this is, and we have closed off tents, so everybody can do that. Then there's a kid zone, and we have things for children of all ages. And so it's just, we have, and it's just because all of our vendors, I would say, it's not like I put it on the form, are you African American?
Right.
And so it's also an economic boost as well for them.
Right.
It certainly is.
We keep our vendors' fees very low. It's like $75 to be a vendor.
Okay.
Awesome.
That's a donation.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? But because I want my community to make money, and I want the money to flow,
circulate.
Yeah.
Right.
Circulate in the community. So therefore, all of the groups that we have booked are North Carolina based.
Got it.
Again, well, first of all, I want again my money to stay in my community.
That's
but
fair.
I also didn't want to ask people to fly or do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Oh, she froze.
Uh-oh. She
Locked up
froze.
on us.
Freeze.
Let's see. She should come back in a second, hopefully.
Miss Coley.
But I really wanted money because the city. Did I freeze?
Yes, you did.
You did.
Just a little bit.
You're back.
But
You're
back
good now.
now.
Here you go.
Okay, because I was like, what in the world? Okay. Yeah, so that's that's what our Juneteenth is about, and we have fun. We call it a block party. We dance in the street. The drummers dance in the street. We ask the community to join in. It's our day.
It is our day.
You hear that, Durham? Raleigh,
it's our day.
Chapel Hill.
I tell them all that. I try to tell people we're coming out there. I tell the cops that we hire for security. You're there to be a presence. You're there today. You're a community policeman. You're not here to be, because you're not here to be intimidating. You are here to smile and be good. And I mean, I need that presence. I want people to feel secure.
Safe, of course. Yeah.
But I do not want. This is not a day for you to be intimidated.
This is not that day.
Gotcha.
So I always ask to have a meeting with the police officers that are going to work my event.
Yes,
to be sure that they have the same mindset.
All right. Well, Ms. Coley, we thank you for that information. We really do. We hope all our listeners, if you're near the RTP area, please come out and support this Juneteenth celebration.
Did I give you the time? It's from 1 to 10.
1 to 10.
Yes.
1 to 10. You sure did on June 19th.
But Ms. Coley, you didn't tell us where will you be? So if we happen to get down there, we can just definitely find, see you and figure out what's
take a picture.
Backstage, we have a VIP area. So you guys just come down there. And the young lady who has booked me will be back there. She can let you come, so it's not a problem. We have an RV and we have some other things that's backstage.
Definitely.
But we also, Spectacular has a booth, has a tent. So I kind of wait between all of those places.
Okay.
We're definitely be looking for you.
And I sit down under the tent and I watch the show.
Right.
Participate.
Definitely.
Fully participate.
Let you slide. So
we'll be sure to be looking out for you.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Look on the dance floor.
Yeah, okay. Find me. Just look down on the floor. Wobble it.
Right.
Wobble it out.
Yeah.
Well, Miss Coley,
yes, and I thought that song was called Wobble Wobble. It's not.
You telling me, because I know it's wobbly. If I ask the DJ, hey, play the wobble.
It works
every time. You want to get them up. Well, Ms. Coley, we thank you so much for being a part of this show. We have definitely learned a lot. We have been enlightened, and we know that our listeners and watchers will definitely be enlightened as well. And we want to continue to support you. And thank you for your time. And listeners,
say hello and stop me and say hello. I would love to meet you face to face and not inside a little box.
Almost definitely. You're definitely going to meet us. Right. No doubt about that. There's no question. But for our listeners, again, please check out the Juneteenth celebration if you can. Well, we thank you guys for listening and watching today. If you want to check us out, you can follow us on IG and Facebook at 4x Dope Podcast. You can also find us on Twitter at 4x Dope Podcast 1. If you want to send us any comments or questions about the show, if you want sponsorship, you can email us at 4timesdopepodcast@gmail.com. Also, don't forget about our merchandise, our 4x Dope merchandise. You can find it at www.shop.s2c. I'm tongue twisted tonight. s2c.com. Did I get that right, Jamie?
You got it out, man. You good.
Okay, I got it out. Good. All right. And so again, we thank everybody for listening and watching, and continue to keep up with us and follow us. And until the next time, we're out.
Peace.